Hey guys, I was thinking a little bit how to deal with toxicity, toxic people, and negativity by people. And there's many ways to do this. I've been talking a lot about toxic metaframing, which is a way of immediately understanding where the other person is coming from, mostly suppressed libido, and then avoiding them completely. But often there are situations which you cannot or is difficult to avoid completely. Let's say you were in prison and you have a toxic person next to you. You cannot really avoid it in that way. So how do you deal with those situations? I say the more you physically distance yourself from that person, the better. So whatever you can do, the less amount of time you spend with them, the better, because you cannot change them. It's very hard to change them. Because it must be in their soul plan to be changed, basically. But there is another way which I find extremely important, and that is, let's call it the switch strategy. The switch strategy means basically going from something that you understand negatively impacts you to immediately creating something that positively impacts you. Meaning, for example, let's say you get a call and the call upsets you. Okay, you try to get out of the call as quickly as possible, boom, and then immediately do something that gives you a good feeling. Go for a walk, start cooking, do whatever makes you feel really like really good. And I don't mean an avoidance strategy like for smoking or something like, or drugs or alcohol, but I mean something that makes you really genuinely feel good about yourself, and do that as quickly as possible and as intensely as possible. So I would call that the switch strategy. And you can do that. You can also do it in your mind if you cannot do it physically. And I think because what happens is that certain thoughts and things fester in your mind, and they can quickly impact also your body. And I've been noticing there was this person that I looked on Instagram, and her videos triggered me a lot, to the point where I was like, what the fuck, why is the world like this? And when you're spiritually awakened, you can detach from it quickly. The effect on the body kind of sticks with you for a while. It's not really a mental thing in that sense. It's more like an energetic thing in that sense. If you're hypersensitive like me, you're gonna feel that more intensely anyway. And so I realized, now I've been reflecting this since yesterday, and then I realized the switch strategy is really the best way to go, because there's no point in wallowing, how do you say, like staying with it and trying to figure things out. Life is way too short to be always concerned about these, especially if it's not your frequency, if it's not something that you feel like it's in your interest. It's kind of like there's certain toxicity and negativity in the world that's just not related to me. Like if somebody's violent, it has nothing to do with me verbally or physically, and I just don't have that frequency in me. So for me, the switch strategy or the avoidance strategy, when I say avoidance, I mean physically. It's more like avoidance means you're staying away from something that you later on will have to face. I think when I say avoidance, I mean more like the complete physical disconnect, to the point that you feel like it's a decision. I don't want to deal with it. I'm never going to deal with it again. Let's say you have a person, let's say you're about to make a business deal, okay, and the person you're working with is toxic for some reason. I prefer to not make the deal rather than work with a toxic person. And that's the kind of choice that you have to make. It's kind of like a very firm type of decision to decide to not work with toxic people. But you have to understand toxic metaframing and toxicity to understand what a toxic person is, because sometimes somebody might appear to be toxic but they're not. So it's important to understand the difference, and we can talk about that a little bit more. I was asked a lot of other things in the comments, and some also people that wanted to have their soul plan read, so we're gonna get to it slowly. I'm a bit overwhelmed with everything that's happening now, so I'll just try to do the switch strategy and just do something else right now that does me really well, and then slowly we'll get back to it and we'll do all the soul plan readings and all of this stuff. Yeah, which we'll do over Telegram. So if you want a soul plan reading, come over to Telegram in the description, and then we'll see what happens.